We've done QB, running back, and tight end, or well, I did tight end by myself. But we have wide receivers now. This is a very fun position. I know heading out of the 2024 season, we had a bit of worry about the wide receiver room. We knew we were going to go into the transfer portal and get at least one, maybe two, maybe even three prospects, three players out of it. But we only go and get one. So J. Michael Sturdivant, a guy who was coming off his worst career year. Now there were some injuries and big offensive woes at UCLA. But now that we're past the spring cycle, it really seems like people are starting to buy low on this wide receiver room that Florida has here. And it's something I'm very excited to talk about because we have elite talent out of high school on this roster, but you also have some kind of sneaky players that could have really good years. I think we'll start off with the guy that we all project to start, wide receiver 1, J. Michael Sturdivant, transferring over from UCLA. He had a down year last year, but he's someone that the NFL really kept an eye out on. We were seeing him getting 4th-round grades, which for someone with so little production the year before, you don't see too often. It just shows the potential that Sturdivant has. He has that size, he has speed that you want out of a wide receiver 1. And I think you look at Billy Gonzalez and his development here at UF, go look at Elijah Badger, Chimere Dike, Ricky Pearsall. These were guys that we got out of the portal, some better production than others. But he gets those guys over here, turns them into NFL wide receivers, and ended up being really good here for UF. So I think you can get that out of J. Michael Sturdivant.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with Billy Gonzalez's portal track record. It's been very solid for a long time now. I mean, yeah, I think that like what you mentioned is the concern. Not only is he coming off his worst season, but it's kind of been a career of diminishing returns for him. His best season was that redshirt freshman year at Cal in 2022. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's fair to question. I mean, he's now obviously, I think, going to be in far and away the best offensive situation he's been in his whole career to this point, between having DJ Lagway, between an offensive line that should be a top 10, if not top 5 unit in America, like honestly.
Yep.
And then I think a receiving core, and we'll talk about the other guys, but like that can help him out and keep him from kind of being the sole target who kind of gets locked down and zeroed in on. I think it's hard not to like the potential with him. I think especially with a guy like DJ Lagway and what he brings to the table, like, and with his size, and the fact that DJ likes to look down the field, I think he could be a really productive receiver for the Gators this year and a major big play target. Because I think, some of the other guys you look at, especially with like Aiden Mizell, Trey Wilson, it's kind of a little bit more specialized in terms of what their role can be. I kind of feel like Sturdivant is maybe the most versatile and kind of the most true wide receiver 1 on this team.
Yeah, Russ Callaway recently spoke out and was saying that J. Michael Sturdivant is better than we thought, and they already thought he was really good. He was the receiver they took, but he's really been impressing, especially in the spring. And they said he's come back with some very good work ethic compared to Ricky Pearsall. So I think it's someone they're very excited to have, and someone we should be excited, as you mentioned, how he can fit in with DJ Lagway and how Lagway likes to go deep. So have that fast and tall receiver downfield, I think will be really good for him. The next receiver we'll talk about, I think, because the first 2 guys we're going to talk about were like pretty set in stone. They're going to start. Trey Wilson, coming off a season of injury. We didn't see too much of him last year in his sophomore season, but a lot of it is looking back at his freshman season and seeing how much of a playmaker he really was, giving him the ball out the backfield, running sweeps, some slants, screen plays. You give him the ball, he's going to make a big play out of it, go for 10, 20 yards there. What we were hoping to see is his development as a wide receiver, his route running and his hands, and see what he can do there. There were some recent photos of his body. He's really worked on it. It's become kind of jacked. And it's something that we should really be excited for going into next season. But how will that affect him being a true wide receiver? I think is the true question we all are wondering.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the number one question for Trey is his health. It's kind of been an issue, and especially because I think when he was at his best in this offense, he was getting a lot of touches. Maybe not the highest efficiency because of like the usage, like you said, but he was a real focal point of the offense, and that kind of was taking its toll. So I think that's a major question coming into this year. I mean, I think, I don't know if this is like a one-to-one comparison, but I think what Florida's looking to see from him this year is kind of similar to the step that like Kadarius Toney took in 2020.
Mm,
Whereas you have this
yeah.
guy who's really talented, really athletic, and can make plays. Can he take that next step, like you said, as a true receiver? Can he become a route runner? Can he become a consistent downfield target? Kadarius Toney was able to do that. I think there's a good chance. I mean, I think Trey, in terms of the fundamentals, is a lot more sound than Kadarius Toney was, before he made that leap
Yeah.
in 2020. So I don't think it's a stretch to say he can do that. I think he probably will, especially with DJ Lagway at quarterback. I think the question for him, and this is kind of the case for a couple guys on this team, but I think no one doubts his ability. It's more, can he stay healthy? And if he does, I
Mhm.
think at the very least, he will be a useful player in this offense just because of that versatility.
I mean, absolutely. You bring up Kadarius Toney, and it's like Kadarius Toney with the ball in his hand might be one of the most amazing things I witnessed as a Florida Gator fan. I mean,
Yeah.
his elusiveness was just out of this world. I mean, so comparing it to Trey and that step that he took in 2020, I think that's a perfect thing to compare it to. But I'm really excited to see it because with the ball, he's so special. He has that speed, and I'm excited to see how it works in his offense next year. Hopefully, he can stay healthy. I'm gonna ask you, who do you think that third starting wide receiver is? Because there's a bunch of different players you can go through. I think there's one name everyone wants it to be.
Yeah.
Is that what you're gonna go with?
No, I would say if you ask me what does it look like against FSU, assuming people are healthy, then maybe I'm not going to say Dallas Wilson's a starter right out of the
Okay.
box here. I think I would probably go with Mizell. It kind of seems like
Mhm.
he's the should, like, I feel like if it's not Mizell, that makes me question where he's at in his development, because this to me should be his time to step into that role. And I think we've seen
Mhm.
enough flashes that it's hard to imagine it's not him. I mean, there's guys like Khalil Jackson, obviously a veteran and a reliable player. I don't think he presents the upside that someone like Mizell or,
No.
obviously someone like Dallas Wilson does.
Yeah, if it's Khalil Jackson, I mean, for those first two games, it's not really going to affect the outcome, but it would be
Mhm.
really devastating to see it. I mean,
I think
I'm
it's pretty possible. I mean, I think it's fairly possible. It's not my pick, but I think there's a good chance it happens.
I hate that I'm not saying you're wrong because of some of the other players we have. I I I don't think if Dallas Wilson's starting over Aiden Mizell, that's a knock on Aiden Mizell. Because I think Dallas Wilson is just that good of a receiving threat. Has that 6'3" size. We saw it in the spring game. Good route runner, good size, good speed. He really has it all. I mean, he just showed why he was that high level recruit five-star player that most people thought he was. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if it's Aiden Mizell because him with the ball, it's like very quick, good at breaking tackles. I think his biggest issue has been his size. He's smaller, more frequent or possible injuries arise from that situation, which is why he didn't get as much playing time last year. I wouldn't be upset if Mizell is starting, but man, I really would love to see it be Dallas Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance you see that. I mean, I think what's interesting to me is I think a lot of the things I said about Sturdivant kind of hold true for Dallas Wilson. Like, it's hard for me to imagine that Dallas Wilson doesn't play a significant role on this team just because
Absolutely.
of the way DJ Lagway plays football. I mean, we know he's looking, like I said, he's looking to make that big play. Like, that's his first instinct. That's where his eyes go first. And, even if Dallas is rough around the edges, maybe not the most polished route runner, maybe has, I don't know, like, typical freshman things, getting confused on plays. But at the end of the day, that skill set, I think, is going to translate even in the SEC on day one. And it's hard not to imagine, that he couldn't pretty easily become potentially the biggest deep play target on this team, because I think when you look at him, and I don't mean this to throw shade at Sturdivant, but I think he's kind of fits that niche, but with a much higher ceiling. So if he's
Yep.
already ready to push for that, then I think, I mean, maybe he eclipses, both guys like Sturdivant and Aiden Mizell. Maybe he's up there, higher on the team in targets, like maybe first or second on the team. I probably wouldn't guess that, but if you told me he finished third on the team in targets. I think that's pretty believable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, we've talked about these 4 wide receivers, but there's still a lot more players on this team that we really like as players. I think the next guy that comes to mind, also 5-star wide receiver, Vernell Brown, true freshman. I see him back. I mean, the slot receiver, we have a bunch of slots because you're going to have Trey Wilson starting. And then to back him up, it's a battle between Vernell Brown and Tank Hawkins. I could see Vernell Brown playing a bit outside compared to Tank, who probably has to stay inside the slot with his size. But, I mean, you have a battle for that position. If Trey Wilson does get hurt, then you're going to see you're going to have to see one of those guys step up, which, based on his history, it's pretty likely he's going to miss a game or two. And you look at early in the season, we're playing cupcake opponents, we're going to rest him more than you would in other games. So what I'm trying to get at here is I don't think at the end of the season you're going to look at this roster and you're going to be like, oh my God, that 1 or 2 players went for nearly 1,000 yards, had elite productive seasons. Because I think you're going to look at it and you're like, okay, wide receiver 1, 700 yards. Wide receiver 2, 600 yards. Wide receiver 3, 550. Wide receiver 4, 500. Wide receiver 5, 500. I think the way they love to rotate talent, you see it a lot on defense. I think you're going to see it a lot in this wide receiver room now that they have all this talent. And with DJ Lagway at QB and a great offensive line to protect him, I think you're going to see a lot of wide receivers get a lot of touches or a good amount of touches. And it's going to really... Yeah, right here. Mark just said it. It reminds me of the 2019 wide receiver room where you had Van Jefferson, Tyree Cleveland, Kadarius Toney, Josh Hammond, Freddie Swain, Trayvon Grimes. I mean, that's 6 wide receivers who, in a year, could be number 1 wide receivers for a Florida team. So I think you're going to have so many players that you have to put on the field because they're so talented that it's going to eat up a lot of carries. And you could be talking about a difference of 5 catches or 30 yards, the difference between like wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 3. So I'm just excited to see this room and hopeful that they run more packages that allow us to show off that talent.
Yeah, I like that 2019 comp. The only real difference, which kind of leads me to the next point I was going to make, is that was a 2019 team that, first of all, Dan Mullen wanted to pass the ball. Second of all, that team could not run the ball really very well at all. With that offensive line, it wasn't particularly successful. So you kind of saw the necessity for that. I wonder, given Billy Napier's tendencies and just the fact that, this is a really good running back room and a fantastic offensive line. And you kind of know that's how Billy wants to win ideally. So I do wonder, I think this could be a really effective passing game. I'm not sure I'm convinced it's going to be a prolific one in spite of DJ Lagway's abilities. I mean, I think that part of that depends on how big of a leap he's taken this offseason, Lagway, because I think obviously if he's already a top 5 quarterback in the country, then, maybe you got to shift the philosophy a little bit to take advantage of that. But so, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm not sure there's gonna be like one guy that emerges to be like 1,000-yard plus receiver from this group. Going back to Vernell Brown, like you mentioned, I think he's really intriguing. I'm not sure. I think he's gonna have a major impact this season. I'm not saying I don't think he's gonna redshirt or anything like that. I think he'll have his moments, have his plays. I think what you said is pretty key. Where if something were to happen to Trey, as we hope it doesn't, yeah, that would probably be his time to shine. And I think you'd see him kind of immediately step into a role there. So, role of some kind at least. So I think that's kind of where he's at this year. I would be kind of surprised if he breaks through into being like a guy that's getting, 4+ targets a game in the way that I think that could pretty easily happen for Dallas Wilson. But I think it's, the depth, I think it's underrated depth at this position. Not a lot of it's proven, but I think it's guys that, like you mentioned too, Tank Hawkins, like a guy we haven't seen a ton of, but I think what we have seen is that he could be a promising playmaker. So, I think a lot of potential here, and it's, I think, not really a concern of does Florida have the guys? It's more just a question of which of them are going to step up this year.
Yeah, we didn't even mention guys like Nashawn Montgomery, who we talked about was someone who probably should have been closer to the top 100 recruit rather than like the 150s he was. Worked a lot on the end of his senior year and really improved, we thought. Someone we could see a little bit of early on in those cupcake opponents. And Khalil Jackson, a solid veteran starter. Doesn't have that upside, but, we'll see what we get. And TJ Abrams. But something that's really sticking out to me, you look at when Billy first got here and the roster he had coming in, the wide receiver room outside of Justin Shorter, I mean, it was just horrible. I mean, because he brings in Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall wasn't someone that one left behind. Who was in that room besides Shorter? Dejon Reynolds, Marcus Burke,
Frazier's,
and Jaquavian Frazier's. Who do we even have in the slot? I mean, I know we had to play Ty Jacoa Bowman. I mean, who did we have in the slot that year?
I'm honestly struggling to remember.
I'm looking it up real quick here. 2022 Florida stats. Wide receivers. Xavier Henderson not in the slot. We didn't have a slot receiver because Caleb Douglas got playing time. Trent Whittemore, but I'm pretty sure he stopped playing like early on, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did not play a major role.
So Trent Whittemore only played 7 games, so we didn't really have a true slot receiver playmaker. But now you look at the roster, there's so much speed with Trey, Vernell Brown, Tank Hawkins, and Aiden Mizell can play in the slot as well. And TJ Abrams has good speed. And we still have size, and you're looking at the current recruiting class we're trying to attain. So much size with the speed, and it's not just one or the other, like Dan Mullen and Billy Gonzalez. He was part of that, brought here to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty strong case to be made that this is the deepest and most well-rounded receiver unit the Gators have had like since the Urban days. I mean, I think like you look at those really good Mullen groups, like you said, not necessarily well-rounded, had the top level guys, but not necessarily the depth. Like when those guys left, there wasn't a lot to work with. I mean, I feel like this is a position which is crazy because we talked about it as being such a major weakness going into the offseason. But they didn't go crazy in the portal addressing it, and it's like in the way that like LSU did with their receiving core. Yep. But in spite of that, I think it's a position group that not only do we feel good about, but I think we feel like it could even sustain an injury or two and still be potentially pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so much talent. Getting Dallas Wilson was a big part of it, and we've seen these guys now. It's just a spring game, but you can tell when a player is going to be good. And I mean, you can just tell that like Nashon Montgomery, before he got injured in that spring game, he had a nice deep ball as well. Like, man, there's so much talent in this wide receiver room, and it just makes me so happy. So what we just had a couple of years ago when we were running out Ty Jacoa Bowman there at the slot. I mean, a guy who ended up at Rice, I'm pretty sure.
Well, and those guys all produced in the spring game without DJ Lagway playing. So, I mean,
Harrison Bailey,
I think it's really hard. It's really hard not to be like tantalized by what this passing game could look like if Lagway is what I think we both and probably most people watching this think he's going to be.
Absolutely. All right. Is there, anyone else in the receiver room? Shout out Taylor Spirito. No offense.
Yeah, I say no offense, but probably going to see more snaps than I would even want him to, even though it probably won't be many. But
one other guy I'll mention. One other guy I want to mention, DeBron Hampton. He was teammates with DJ Lagway at Willis High School. Smaller, pretty athletic player. Someone that I could see after this year going to another D1 FBS program and being on scholarship. I've seen there's some talks about returning him as a return man. I mean, I liked what I saw from him, but we have too much talent to be putting a walk-on at returner, like unless he really is that special. But, I hope he can go to another program and be someone that's a really good player for him.
Yeah.
You have anything else you want to say about the receiver room, or you think you got it all?
I would just add the fourth true freshman was Tunkara. I would say, interesting because of his size, was a 3-star guy, but one that, yeah, exactly. A 3-star guy, one that had a decent amount of recruiting interest and the Gators really wanted. I mean, I don't really think he'll play this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he redshirted this season. I think he's probably really only a guy you'd see, barring him just being way better than we're expecting. But I think he's probably a guy that, you're not going to really see barring some sort of injuries or something. But intriguing enough with his size and speed that I guess I wouldn't be shocked if he found a role, but I wouldn't really expect it.
Yeah, it would be too early at this point.
Yeah.
No, we're just saying Spirito, with the talent, he shouldn't be getting as much playing time as he got last year.
Yeah. Because even if you deal with injuries, there's the depth there that you haven't really had in quite a long time.
I mean, I'd rather even see him use Sankara over Spirito.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And again, no disrespect to Spirito. He seems like a good team guy. But Florida in year 4 with Billy Napier should not be relying on Taylor Spirito for significant reps.